going to start. Actually, we will waiting for our principal sir.
Okay.
Hello everyone. We are going to start. Actually, we will waiting for our principal sir.
Okay.
Hello everyone. We are going to start. Actually, we will waiting for our principal sir.
Okay.
Hello everyone. We are going to start. Actually, we will waiting for our principal sir.
Okay.
Hello everyone. We are going to start. Actually, we will waiting for our principal sir.
Okay.
Hello everyone. We are going to start. Actually, we will waiting for our principal sir.
Okay.
Hello everyone. We are going to start. Actually, we will waiting for our principal sir. Hello everyone.
Okay.
Me, Anindita Mukherjee, a teacher of Department of Sanskrit of Gobardanga Hindu College. It is our pleasure to welcome each and everyone to our 3-day international webinar on exploring Vedic thought in contemporary society, organized by the Department of Sanskrit of Gobardanga Hindu College, collaborated with IQAC.
Okay.
A very good afternoon, everyone, a teacher of Department of Sanskrit. To welcome our respected Hindu College. It is our pleasure to welcome each and everyone to our 3-day international webinar on exploring on Vedic thought in contemporary society, organized by the Department of Sanskrit of Gobardanga Hindu College, collaborated with respected speakers. A very good afternoon, everyone, a teacher of Department. We all have gathered here to discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting each and everyone and about some international webinars on exploring I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished VAs, respected speakers, very good afternoon, everyone. And all department all have gathered here all discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting
It is audible
and
and
everyone and about some international webinars on exploring I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished VAs, respected speakers, very good afternoon, everyone. And all department all have gathered here all discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting
it is audible
and
and
everyone and about some international webinars on exploring I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished VAs, respected speakers, very good afternoon, everyone. And all department all have gathered here all discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting
it is audible
and
and
everyone and about some international webinars on exploring I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished VAs, respected speakers, very good afternoon, everyone. And all department all have gathered here all discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting
it is audible
and
and
everyone and about some international webinars on exploring I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished VAs, respected speakers, very good afternoon, everyone. And all department all have gathered here all discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting
it is audible
and
and
everyone and about some international webinars on I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished VAs, respected speakers, very good afternoon, everyone. And all department all have gathered here all discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting
it is audible
and
and
everyone and about some international webinars on I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished VAs, respected speakers, very good afternoon, everyone. And all department all have gathered here all discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting
it is audible
and
and
everyone and about some international webinars on I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished VAs, respected speakers, very good afternoon, everyone. And all department all have gathered here all discuss about a very significant topic. It is our same at starting
it is audible
and
and
everyone and about some international webinars on I am on a Vedic worship in Saraswati Society organized by the non-affiliated forward principles of Gobardanga Hindu College, distinguished
Okay, okay.
Recording done.
Okay, okay.
Recording done.
Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviriyam Karvavahai, Tejasvina Vaditamastu, Mahavidishavahai. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 3 days international webinar on exploring Vedic thoughts in contemporary society, organized by the Department of Sanskrit, Gobardanga, Hindu College, Gobardanga, West Bengal, India. To do that, we have called on Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, and to learn something new. We all say Vaditamastu, Mahavidishavahai. Om don't be late, Shantihi, Shantihi. We warm wishes to the everyone and welcome to our 3 days international webinar on exploring Vedic thoughts in contemporary society, organized by the Department of Sanskrit, Gobardanga, Hindu College. I mean, from Gobardanga, West Bengal, India. In this talk, we have called on Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, and to learn something new. We all say Vaditamastu, Mahavidishavahai. Om don't be late, Shantihi, Shantihi. We warm wishes to the everyone and welcome to our
Before that, introduce our honorable guest, who are the
in
guests.
contemporary society, organized by the Department of Sanskrit, Hindu College. I mean, from Gobardanga, West Bengal, India. In this talk, we have called on Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, and to learn something new. We all say Vaditamastu, Mahavidishavahai. Om don't be late, Shantihi, Shantihi. We warm wishes to the everyone and welcome to
Before
our
that,
And Professor Ashok Kumar Mahato sir also here. He is from the Jadavpur University Department of Sanskrit.
can you provide me the list?
Okay, sir. I will provide.
Just now? Is it possible?
Sir, actually, I provide. Actually, I send you in your WhatsApp, sir. You may see the program schedule, sir. The list of in program schedule at first page, sir.
Anyway, on behalf of Gobardanga Hindu College and on behalf of Department of Sanskrit of the same college, I like to welcome all our honorable guests to this 3-day long webinar. Just now, it's my duty is to inaugurate a collection of seminar proceedings in a book form. Before pandemic, there was one such seminar. At that moment, webinar, the term webinar was not so popular. It was seminar, an offline mode seminar. And on the basis of the proceedings of that seminar, one book is going to be published from the Department of Sanskrit, Gobardanga Hindu College. The name of the book is Influence of Vedic Literature on Sriti Shastra and its Congeniality in Modern Age. It is edited on behalf of Department of Sanskrit, Gobardanga Hindu College, Dr. Siti Roy, and
Sir, it is Siti Sarkar, sir.
Siti,
Siti Sarkar.
Dr. Siti Sarkar, Assistant Professor of Department of Sanskrit, Gobardanga Hindu College. And at this moment, just I declare the book form of seminar proceedings in this name is published, inaugurated, and launched. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable words as always. Now we will call our IQAC coordinator, Dr. Kaveri Sharkar, ma'am, Associate Professor of Gobardanga Hindu College. Please, ma'am, say something about this webinar.
I would like to tell you one thing, Devjyoti. Principal sir did not give the welcome address. Actually, you asked him to inaugurate the book, but you didn't request him to deliver the address. Please request him to deliver the address, welcome address.
Please, sir.
You may do that because I was not properly informed in this regard.
Sir, you can welcome address actually.
No, I was not informed. To inaugurate the book, it was their program. You can do that, no problem.
Okay, sir. Very good afternoon to all of you, and very warm welcome to all our respected speakers, delegates, and guests. On behalf of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Gobardanga Hindu College, I would like to express my gratitude to all the eminent resource persons who have kindly accepted our invitation to deliver their lectures. I would like to welcome them all on behalf of Gobardanga Hindu College, as well as IQAC, as well as Department of Sanskrit. I would also like to congratulate the Department of Sanskrit of our college for organizing such a webinar with a galore of renowned speakers from different parts of the globe. Hope this webinar will throw light on the different aspects of the long and deep-rooted influence of Vedic literature, culture, and philosophy on the Indian society. I also hope that the webinar will throw light on the need of the principles and values of the Vedic era in today's contemporary Indian society, and that the researchers can unfold newer aspects in this context. I wish this webinar great success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable words. Now this is time to inaugural speech by Professor Dr. Jan E.M. Hoven, Director of Studies, Sources and History of the Sanskrit Tradition, Practical School of Higher Studies, Section of Historical and Philological Science, Paris Sciences and Letters, University of Paris, Paris, France. Visiting professor at IIT Bhubaneswar from 2019 to 2020, School of Humanities, Social Sciences and Management, Bhubaneswar, Odisha, India. Now, he is the professor of the Sanskrit tradition, equally practices hotis today's section of historical and philological sciences, Paris Sciences and Letters, University Paris, Paris, France. He will present now the topic pre-scientific science in early Vedic text. Welcome, sir, to our webinar. Are you here? Please unmute, sir.
Sir, you are unmute, sir.
Yes. So I hope you
Thank
can
you,
hear
sir.
me now.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So I see. Okay, so Namo Namaha. It's a great pleasure. I have to thank the organizers. A great pleasure to be with you here, and I thank the organizers, Principal Dr. Hare Krishna Mandal, and the convener Dr. Smriti Sarkar, and all co-conveners and organizing members for inviting me to speak, to give the guest lecture as the chief guest today for this webinar with a beautiful, wide, important, comprehensive theme of exploring Vedic thoughts in contemporary society. So this theme, it's a very broad one, and my talk will focus on the pre-scientific science in early Vedic texts, but I will also point out the link with the larger theme. It's a very beautiful program which you have made, and I will try to be present as much as possible. However, unfortunately, because of a busy schedule, only today I might be able to attend some of the lectures. So I'm also happy to see in the program.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Our
Yes.
principal sir, please mute yourself.
Oh.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm also happy to see that in the program several colleagues whom I know since several years are present, and contributing Professor Partha Pratim Das, whom I know, whom we met long ago in the Netherlands in 98, and that was the previous millennium. And then also Professor Maudas Gupta, that will be on the third day traveling. But anyway, so I'm very happy to be among you, and I will try to contribute my little share to this broad theme of exploring Vedic thoughts in contemporary society, and with a special focus on the Vedic texts. First, I will start with I composed two shlokas to bring the honor to honor my one of my teachers. Several teachers have been, of course, always been there. So Vidya Karunya reflects ideas, but reflects its culture too. And B, it is pointed out that later Vedic literature and culture in India were deeply influenced by these ancient texts and the culture in which they are embedded. And C, that the relevance of the ancient Vedic texts and their culture is therefore relevant for modern life and society. In order to evaluate the possible influence and relevance of Vedic literature and culture on modern life and society, it is important first to understand the huge corpus of Vedic texts in the context of the ancient culture it belonged to and where it emerged, including the culture consisting of ancient rituals associated with the texts. The ancient Vedic texts, and sometimes even more the ancient rituals associated with these texts, give very detailed information on the culture that was contemporary with the creation of the Vedic hymns. In my talk, I will mainly concentrate on the first point included in the theme of the webinar, namely how this huge corpus of Vedic texts not only reflects ideas, but reflects its culture too. This culture, which is implicit in or associated with the texts and rituals, however, this culture should be understood in a very wide sense, as including the original ecology presupposed by the rituals and the language and linguistic characteristics of the texts. The central question of my talk is, how and with what purpose did the Rishi or Rishi-like authors of the Brahmanas and even of numerous poems in the Samhitas develop what appears to us in the terms proposed by Herman Oldenberg in 1919, a pre-scientific science, and a pre-philosophical philosophy. Was it by chance that a scientific thought had developed, especially in these ancient texts, the Brahmana, and also already quite frequently in enumerations in the Vedic hymns, but nowhere else, or rarely anywhere else, in contemporary cultures in the world of that time? Because the evaluation of the contributions by these ancient authors should first of all be made in comparison, science is of course of little value. The organizers of the webinar present the Vedic texts and culture as having flourished at least 1,000 years from 1500 BC to 500 BC, and therefore as possessing an original chronological framework, apart from also being Indian, and as having thus also an original geographical framework in terms of the boundaries of ancient India. This is a fruitful starting hypothesis, but it is in conflict with the thesis, often, but not always, accepted by practicing Vaidikas, and frequently also by authors of pre-modern Vedic and Brahminical texts who invoke the Veda and statements in the Veda as having eternal value. Source of authority. Among others, the 14th century Vedic commentator Sayana adopts the Apaurushaya argument of the Mimamsakas in its entirety in his Bhumika to his commentary on the Vedas, especially on the Rig Veda, in that Bhumika. Apart from the philosophical school of Mimamsa, also Vedanta takes this Veda as eternal and Apaurushaya, but other ancient schools of philosophy, which adhere to the Veda, argue, on the contrary, that the Veda is Paurushaya, deriving from one or more human or divine personalities. Especially in the earliest stages of the school of Vaisheshika, its philosophers have argued that the Veda derives from specific authors, the Rishis. From Vaisheshika Sutra 611, Buddhi Purva Vakya Kurtir Vede, which means in the Veda, the composition of sentences has been preceded by understanding. From that statement, we can infer the position that the composition of Vedic texts is preceding by thinking and hence a creation by individuals, especially by the seers. Although Chandrananda's commentary, probably in the light of the emerging theism of his time, interprets this reference to the author of the Veda, and also the word Rishi in the next Sutra 612, in a quite forced way as a reference to Maheshwara. Together with the Nayayikas, who take a supreme god, Ishvara, as the personal author of the Veda, the Vaisheshika thinkers did in any case not accept the plain doctrine of authorlessness, apaurusheyatva, of the Veda. There was also a school of Aitihasika interpretation of the Rig Veda, and which is mentioned in the Nirukta, but this school did not survive. It tried to interpret personalities. Not much of their views is preserved, but it is likely that the authors of the hymns were also regarded as historical personalities. Although it follows naturally from the preceding observations, the next question has so far never been asked systematically. To what type of environment would this chronologically and geographically located Vedic ritual and the Vedic texts fit in its basic structure? In what type of environment would the Veda and Vedic ritual be suitable and entirely appropriate? In what environment would it prosper? In view of its non-sedentary agro-pastoral character, which is visible everywhere, a preliminary answer to this question is Vedic ritual, Vedic text and especially Vedic ritual would suit a not yet cultivated or sparsely cultivated, to a large extent still lightly or densely forested area. To this should be added that Vedic ritual and those engaged in Vedic ritual will, period, unavoidably transform or help to transform the environment which it needs to have as its starting point. If the Vedic people are able to successfully stay, to roam, temporarily set and roam again, and prosper in a not yet cultivated or sparsely cultivated, to a large extent still lightly or densely forested area, this area can be expected to gradually become the domain for a growing number of semi-nomadic inhabitants and slowly evolve and become more and more savanna and shrubland or agricultural area. This leads to two further crucial questions. When and where was not yet cultivated, sparsely cultivated and lightly or densely forested area available in the northern part of the Indian subcontinent? And this question should be asked specifically for the period between, say, pre-Buddha and after after Harappa civilization or Saraswati civilization. And the period, so after the disappearance of the Indus civilization and before the references to Brahmins in Ashokan inscriptions. And also another question, when and where did this not yet cultivated, lightly or densely forested area evolve to become savanna, shrubland, and later on agricultural land? For a detailed discussion on this topic, I have to refer now to some of my earlier publications, especially the article Ecology of Ritual Innovation in Ancient India, Textual and Contextual Evidence, which appeared in Self, Sacrifice and Cosmos, Essays in Honor of Professor Ganesh Umakant Tite, that appeared in 2019 in Delhi Primus Books. So I showed there that a place mentioned in the Mahabhashya of the 2nd century BC, the Kalaka forest, was an important landmark indicating the easternmost limit of the land of the Aryas at the confluence of the Yamuna and Ganga river. Some later passages point to a situation in which not only this land of the Aryas has significantly expanded, we also see that the Kalaka forest as landmark is replaced by another landmark, the city Prayaga, equally situated at the confluence of the Yamuna and Ganga. This and several other indications point to an ecological transformation of the area over a period of several centuries. Even now, coming back to that topic of the personal rishis who are located in time and place somewhere, so even the Vedic rishis themselves, they state quite clearly at several occasions that the Vedic hymns are created by persons, rishis, who are basically human or who are children of men. And here I refer, we could make a whole list of such references in the Rig Veda itself, and I refer to one statement that is Rig Veda, Mandala 7, hymn 29, stanza or mantra 4. Uto ghate purushya ida san, yesham purvesham ashurnor arshinam, adhaham tva maghavanjo havimi, tvamna indrasi pramatih piteva. I wrote it also on my whiteboard, but I see that Google Meet gives it in a mirror image. But so it is Rig Veda 7:29:4. I made an adaptation in Zoom to make to undo the mirroring, which these programs usually do. But I have not done that for. I have not been able to do that for Google Meet. So you have to read it in mirror image. Or you can find 7:29:4 in the in your own edition of the Rig Veda. So the meaning of this verse, of this mantra, following the German translation of Geldner, which I put it in English. So also those earlier rishis were sons of men that you listened to. You is Indra. That is why I cry out to you, O bounteous one. You, Indra, are our providence like a father. So it is remarkable that even Vasishta, one of the 7 major rishis, he speaks of earlier rishis who were sons of men. So we have here a very Paurusheya approach or a view on the Vedic words, Vedic prayers, Vedic mantras. And we have human authors of the Veda here, and although the knowledge they present in their compositions was perhaps, or was no doubt, eternal and aparusheya as pure knowledge, as the knowledge which they could achieve, the Vedic poems and the prayers emerge in the mind of the rishis in a process of visionary viewing. And this process had a place in time and had some extension in time. According to a later definition, however, the Veda consists not only of poems and prayers, but also of the discussions again in texts, in prose, such as the Brahmanas, which deal with the hymns and other texts, and especially with the rituals in which these Vedic texts are employed. So one of the older meanings of Brahman is Vedic verse or formula, mantra, and Brahmana. So Brahmana refers accordingly to something that is related to the Brahman. So they are the texts dealing with these Vedic verses and formulas and with the ritual episodes in which they are employed. This Brahmana is part of the relatively late definition of the Veda, Mantra Brahmanayo Veda Namadheyam, found, for instance, in the Apastamba Shrouder Sutra in 24.1.31. In practice, we may regard as texts of the Brahmana genre those Vedic texts that have a title ending in Brahmana, for instance, Aitareya Brahmana, Shatapatha Brahmana, etc. Plus also the Brahmana sections of Samhitas, Brahmanas and Aranyakas of the Black Yajurveda. For instance, Prapataka 5 in the Taittiriya Aranyaka, which I translated and published and analyzed and studied. So, and then there is also minus the mantra sections of Brahmanas of the Black Yajurveda, and also minus those Samavedic texts, apart from the real Samavedic Brahmanas, the Panchavimsha and the Jaiminiya Brahmana. But there are Samavedic texts which are called Brahmana, but which evidently belong to some other category. The Shatvimsha Brahmana, for instance, is rather an Aranyaka. The Samavidhana Brahmana is more belonging to the category of the Vidhanas, Rigvidhana, than to any Brahmana, etc. So we now arrive at our central question, which I have already mentioned. How and with what purpose did the Rishi or Rishi-like authors of the Brahmanas develop what appears to us, in the terms proposed by Hermann Oldenberg in 1919, what appears to us a pre-scientific science and a pre-philosophical philosophy? Was it by chance that a scientific thought had developed, especially in these ancient texts, the Brahmanas, and also already quite frequently in enumerations in the Vedic hymns, but nowhere else or rarely anywhere else in contemporary cultures in the world? Or is there somewhere an overlap between the goals of the Brahmana authors and the scientists of, say, the 18th century, who contributed to what we at present call science, a science of which we also all unavoidably experience the contributions, but also the dangers to modern life and humanity? An overlap can in fact be found in the search for entities or realities underlying reality. So the search for entities or realities which underlie the perceptible reality. So in science, we see this search for entities or realities which underlie the visible, the experienced reality, That we see both in 18th century emerging modern science and also of reality. And we see that, for instance, in the search for the chemical elements and their organization in a periodic system, and after much research by previous scientists and scholars, scientists and experimental specialists, after several decades, it was Dmitry Mendeleev who in 1869 could set up this periodic system of chemical elements, and that was the basis for the mastery of a number, almost infinite number of chemical, physical, and nuclear technologies. So in ancient India, it was the Vedic ritual that provided a stimulating and conducive context for the search for these underlying entities, or dhatu in a broad sense, in several realms of reality: language, human body, matter, ontology. Everywhere the specialists were searching for what are the underlying elements, what are the dhatus underlying language, underlying human body, matter, and ontology. The first attempts are clearly visible in the Brahmanas, and the identification of the underlying entities has been particularly successful in the field of language. Commendable efforts have also been made to identify stable underlying elements in the realms of physical matter, chemistry and alchemy, and the human body, Ayurveda, the science of longevity. While no conclusive and widely accepted results emerged from attempts to identify ontological elements, because we always continued in ancient India, we always continued with several very different theories about the ontological elements. The Buddhists and the Nayayikas, Vaishyasikas, they all had very different theories. They couldn't arrive at any conclusive result. But for Ayurveda, especially for language also, there were very stable results. The dhatus, we have a whole list of dhatus of the language, which could be accepted by both Buddhists and Brahminical authors and Jainas. So what then was the context? How could this? What was the context for this ancient research in the time of the Brahmanas? The Brahmanas are sometimes thought to be commentaries on the Samhitas, the ancient collections of hymns, chants, and ritual formulas from the various branches of the Veda. This is partly correct, but it's still better to say that the Brahmanas are commentaries on Vedic rituals, including the hymns which are employed in them. So as the field of Vedic rituals is quite vast, it is useful, before continuing, to take a closer look at their nature. A common division of the Vedic ritual into categories is as follows. 1, the magical rites. 2, there are domestic rites. 3, there are funeral rites. And finally, 4, there are the Shrouder rituals, which are very different. Now, from an international point of view of many centuries and millennia of rituals which we can study among different people in the world, from that point of view, from that broad point of view, the categories, the rituals in the categories 1 to 3, the magical rites, the domestic rites, and the funeral rites, they fit effortlessly into the general worldwide categories of rites, of magic and religion, as described, for instance, by James George Fraser in 1894 to 1900, and also in the categories of rite de passage, rites of passage, as described by Arnold van Gennep in 1909. However, category number 4, the Shrouder rituals, is quite problematic. And that means in our attempt to fit it into the larger study of rituals, it doesn't, it is symptomatic of its problematic status, is that there is no agreement among scholars on any appropriate English or French or German translation of the Sanskrit term used to refer to it, namely Shrouta, that is literally based on the Shruti, based on revealed texts. The texts dealing in detail with these Shrouder rituals are the Shrouder Sutras, while the passages cited as authoritative, revealed texts are selected passages from the Brahmanas. Confronted with the difficulty of naming this fourth category of rites, scholars have generally either abandoned the translation of the term Shrouder, and they have just kept Shrouder rituals, or they have substituted it with the bland label of solemn rituals, but that doesn't say anything what solemn rituals, as if the domestic rituals would not be solemn, or funeral rites can also be very solemn. So solemn rituals doesn't say anything. So it only shows the despondency of how to understand the Shrouder rituals in a broader context. In fact, the category of Shrouder rituals is a unique and precious category of rituals. According to their nature, this category could be described rather as a developed system of contemplative ritual, in which to understand or to see things in a certain way, think of the expression Ya evam Veda, means the rituals work only for Ya evam Veda, he who sees things in that way. So that is one of the crucial ingredients of the ritual. So to see the things in a certain way is one of the crucial ingredients of the Shrouder rituals. So in that way, ecology of Vedic ritual. So we are justified in understanding the Shrouder rituals as contemplative rituals. But this implies ascribing to the root vid, not simply the meaning to know, but rather the meaning to see, which is closer to the meaning attributed to the reconstructed Indo-European root vid, to spot, to perceive, rather than the sense which is the meaning which is normally attributed of either. It means the old Indo-European root vid has split in Vedic into two roots: the vid to know and vid vindati to find. But in both cases, the underlying meaning is to see. And that comes out, that older meaning comes out in that expression, that old Vedic expression, that the rituals are for Ya evam Veda. So as the nature of this contemplative ritual was quite unknown to them, the rituals belonging to this category, the Indian Vedic rituals belonging to this category, remained largely incomprehensible to the first generations of Western explorers. The vast literature devoted to it, especially the Vedic Brahmana and Aranyaka, seemed to be the racket of fools and the ravings of madmen. That is what Max Müller said in 1859. However, among several categories of Vedic rituals, it is precisely this obscure category of Shrouder rituals that is by no means incompatible with philosophy. Normally, we say that philosophy and ritual, that has nothing to do with the other, but especially in those Shrouder rituals, we see how they come together, ritual and philosophy. In fact, these Shrouder rituals, they framed and fostered the preliminary stages of the development of philosophy and scientific thought in India. Seeing things a certain way is not just about ritual acts, as acts and the hymns, songs and formulas employed in them, but rather about the bandhuta, the system of correlations in which these participate. Such these links are normally expressed as identifications. So these links, the bandhus, are normally expressed as identifications. And the authors themselves have categorized their interpretations. They concern the yajnam, the macrocosmos, the adidaivam, or the individual adhyatman. So the diversity of these identifications was not received very favorably by Vedic scholars of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Sylvain Lévy, for instance, he pointed out that the Vedic gods Mitra and Varuna are, by chance, encounters, intelligence and will, decisions and actions, the waning moon and the waxing moon. The variety of these interpretations demonstrates their fantastic nature. Referring especially to Shire, as Stanislav Shire, Jan Gonda admitted that magical elements are not absent from Vedic rituals. Yet, according to Jan Gonda, Vedic rituals are generally not considered to be against society, but on the contrary, as an indispensable means of maintaining universal order. They must be executed as part of the structure of the universe. Their time relations are fixed. The officiants are highly concerned with the intrinsic meaning of the ritual they maintain through a knowledge of the bandhu, the appropriate relationship with the powers. It is therefore not surprising that Gonda agrees with an interpretation of Rig Veda 1044, mantra 5, Ena Jagara Bandhuta, proposed by Louis Renou, French Vedic scholar Louis Renou, and that he translates the sentence as, by him, the soma, the system of correlations was awake. That means obvious. Consistent with the conceptual interpretation of Renou and Gonda is a remark by the philosopher-grammarian Bhartrihari. So Renou and Gonda, they propose a conceptual interpretation of the bandhu and not a magical interpretation. So consistent with this conceptual interpretation is the remark by philosopher-grammarian Bhartrihari. If an act is prescribed in a certain way, and if a negative result is predicted for the case one deviates from the proposed way, for example, saying that a snake will attack the person who eats the sacrificial cake with his teeth, then it is not necessary to believe in this negative prediction. It is enough to take it as an encouragement for the execution of the act in a way desirable, which is a way which is desirable. For instance, eating it in such a way that the teeth do not go through that sacrificial cake. Now, the identifications of the Brahmana texts, they testify to a correlative mode of thought, often in the form of the association of an element of the ritual with an element or entity of the macrocosmos or the microcosmos. The correlative mode of thought found in ancient China also, and in Europe and India, it developed, according to Farmer, Henderson, and Witzel, only and exclusively where there is a layered textual tradition. Elsewhere, I have shown that the Vedic ritual system, as handed down with great precision, functioned as a medium, so that we may add here an oral textual tradition and the correlative thought may have already existed. And it was developing slowly, even before the relatively late writing, physical writing of sacred texts in India. So we have already a very precise oral transmission, even when it was not yet needed to write every text down. A purely oral, but technically or very advanced mnemonic way of transmitting of Padapata and Samhita. So we find this some similar structures we find even in the Avesta, which is the language of Avesta is very close to Vedic Sanskrit. So so in ancient India, contemplative ritual and correlative thought, or we can say contemplative and correlative thought, they are constrained by their ritual context, by the ritual context of the yajna, oral, layered textual tradition, and this was applied to several spheres of life. For example, through listings, especially it became important to list all the constituents or underlying elements of a certain reality. That is important from the ritual point of view, and also that contributes to science. So here we have the context of ritual, which also contributes to scientific reflection. What are now really all parts of the body? If we want to pray for a healthy body, we should not forget any crucial underlying, any dhatu of our body, any crucial underlying element or any part of our body. So this if one prayer is not strong enough, we have to make a better one, which includes all basic elements, parts of the body. So here we see how this context of the Shrouder ritual is a place to in a competitive way to enumerate briefly all parts of the body, of the earth, of the reality, of the universe, so that our prayers, our physical world, should be as complete as possible. So
Thank you, sir,
So
for
if-
your valuable speech.
So then, yes, so I will, so we have this Henderson and Witzel, we have this, so at this point, we can see that we can say, let me now summarize and let me also formulate some prospects. We can say that the configuration in ancient India, which facilitated and encouraged, means I can give more details, and in my other articles and publications, I gave more details of this importance of the simple enumerations, but very scientifically important. And gradually they proceed to have a very systematic enumeration of the Pancha Mahabhutani in the Aitareya Aranyakas and the Aitareya Upanishad, etc. So from there on, we have the very systematic identification of elements which underlie reality. So to summarize, we can say, to summarize and also to formulate some prospects, we can say that the configuration in ancient India which facilitated and encouraged pre-scientific analysis and enumerations of stable and underlying parts and elements of several dimensions of the universe is as follows. First of all, there is a contemplative ritual, the Shrouder ritual, and there is correlative thought. And they are joined to a textual tradition which, even if still oral, can preserve and transmit reliably the contributions to domains of knowledge in a context of competition of priest authors to formulate the best possible enumerations, which briefly and accurately refer to the various dimensions of reality, human body, physical world, etc. So we have here explored where ancient authors of Vedic texts and Brahmana works overlap with the pioneers of modern science of the 18th and 19th century. The results of our exploration are important, but of course they cannot do full justice to the status of the authors of these ancient texts, because we only looked at where they overlap, not where they are different. We have observed, moreover, that the Mimamsa and Advaita Vedanta theory of the Aparusheya Veda has been explored and has been accepted as the orthodox traditional view on the Veda nowadays. So that's nowadays widely accepted. And here the value of the Veda is determined by its Aparusheya and absolutely eternal nature. No role remains for the Rishis, who are not even existing according to some Mimamsa theorists, but their names indicate natural phenomena or abstract entities. Another orthodox and traditional view has been very little explored, and that is the view of the Paurusheya Veda as it was accepted in early Vaisheshika, pre-classical Vaisheshika, as we know it, for instance, from the Vaisheshika Sutra. Here, the value of the Veda is determined by the capacity of the Rishi to have special knowledge of reality. Even in classical Vaisheshika, it is still accepted that the knowledge of the Rishi is a special, completely separate category of knowledge, Arsha Jnana, distinct from Pratyaksha, and distinct even from Pratyaksha, including Yogi Pratyaksha. And it is distinct from Laingika or Anumana-based knowledge, and it is different from Smrti. As we read in the Padartha Dharma Sangraha, Vidyapi Chaturvidha, Pratyaksha Laingika Smrti Arsha Lakshana. This Arsha Jnana concerns things that are Atita, Anagata, and Vartamana, and also that are Atindriya. The remarkable thing is that the Padartha Dharma Sangraha says that this type of knowledge not only belongs to the Devarshis, but also occasionally to common people. Tattu prastarena devarshinam kadati deva laukikanam yatha kanyaka braviti shvo me brata aganta iti hridayam me kathayatiti. So even the very laukika, the simple people, can have this arsha jnana, which is a very different category of knowledge. So to summarize it, my points in Sanskrit briefly, I composed some shlokas. Vedasya paurusheya tvam jaiminyadibhir ishyate. Vedasya purushoktatvam ahur kanabhuk adayah. Buddhi purva kurtir durshta veda vakyasya sutra kurt abravit kanabhuk tasmat vedokta kartarta. There is really vedokta kartarta. So, and 3, urshinaiva kurtam suktam ityuktam urshinaivahi urshayo cha purushya it asan ityurshir abravit. So this refers to this 7:29:4. So this is something which needs to be explored further, of course, in my view, apart from all other dimensions which can be explored. But the dimension of the Rishi, the vision of the Rishi, what was this process of the vision of the Rishi, which was already so much explored by the Rishis themselves. So the remarkable thing is we know a lot about the vision of the Vedic poets. The Veda itself tells us a lot about it. And for instance, Jan Gonda already analyzed it in detail in his book, The Vision of the Vedic Poets. And then we have this quality. We have this quality of the Rishi we see also with other people. And to conclude, the quality of these rishis has also special. It has a special. They have a special impressive radiance, which and this aspect, impressive radiance, which creates peace. Like being near a real rishi, you feel the peaceful radiation of that rishi, and that is something which at the current time we need so much in this world. So I would like to conclude with 2 Sragdaras composed by an unknown Pandit, Ashukavi from Benares probably in the 1930s, when he met the Shankaracharya of Jyotirmath, who was visiting. So he composed the following verses. Yat sthanam Pavitrikirtam amalapadanyasatah prema purnam dhara somasya shashvat prakatita suguna pravahat tatra tatra satvotrekah spatodhedana vishadatarah shrila saukyapti hetuh bhadram satpushtim apa drutataram abhitah pranta bhage samaste purnajnapti prakarshat vimalataram abhut antariksham samagram prabalyantatra punji kirtam akhila manah shantih asaditacha prapta shreyah pravardhih samabhavadakhilam yasya karunyatastam brahmanandam yatindram pranamata satatam chetanajnana siddhyai. Iti uktva viramami. Thank you very much. Sorry that I took maybe a little more time, but I think it's still within the 45 minutes.
Sir, thank you, sir. There is some questions. There are some questions. Question asked by Guneshwara Deka. Are the rituals are ancient completely?
Yes. Yes, so there we know them from a very ancient period. So and of course there's continuity with modern rituals. So that is a whole mass of ritual is there, enormous mass of ancient rituals which have a certain let's say a recipe, and they have a certain let's say there's a palashruti, there is a promise, let's say, of what happens if you follow the recipe correctly, fasting or intermittent fasting, or fasting in together with the waning, waxing or waning moon, and praying, putting your mind in a certain focus that can lead to something. So these vratas, we see them already in the Veda, in the Rig Veda, and also vratas to prepare for doing the Shrouder Rituals. We have the vratas for, let's say, domestic purposes. So I have now concentrated on the rituals of the ancient time, which we know, means in my own studies, I focus on that, the rituals which we know from the ancient texts. So we are sure that they are old. And to see what is their value or their interest for or even the influence for modern life, that is a separate chapter of study which I have not explored very much. But the ancient rituals, they can sometimes clarify the modern rituals. If you are already familiar from your own family with certain rituals, you can find sometimes explanation in the old rituals. And sometimes the modern rituals also, they can clarify the ancient rituals. Like when I study something from the texts and then I see in my visits to India, I see certain people practicing some vratas, then I can sometimes understand the ancient texts also better. So it is in fact it goes in two ways. The modern rituals in India, or modern vratas which are popularly followed, they can clarify the ancient ones, and the ancient ones can clarify the modern ones.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. There is also a question asked by Shantanu Shorka, sir. There are numerous researches have been done and are being going on to unearth the Vedic insights like Salva Sutra in relation to the advanced level mathematical techniques and other allied genres. What would be future possibilities on this particular counterpart? Could you please light on this? Thanks.
So there is indeed, of course, there are the mathematical aspects, like I already pointed out, the search for dhatus, and that is one important aspect of the scientific emerging objective science, let's say, in ancient times. But then I have to put the footnote that we should not only think of the objective science, which can be transmitted easily to others, and we can easily profit from the technology, etc. But we should also know that these rishis had some probably some discipline or some procedures or some, let's say, subjective exploration of their mind. That was that citation of the radiation of peace. Peaceful mind radiates also peace. So they had apparently the rishis had also practices, procedures, sadhana to achieve that. So that is another aspect. But now coming back to the objective science, there is indeed, of course, an enormous domain of mathematical knowledge and procedures which are already there in the Shulba Sutras. So the Shulba Sutras, which are on one way, scholars, they have studied those texts of Brahmasputta Siddhanta, and they could not always understand what was there. And they were also not yet aware of all other texts. So in some recent studies by Kishan Swami, my colleague here in Paris. He has highlighted the better way of reading these texts from the point of view of trying to understand, trying to listen better to what these texts are saying. So yes, there is much to be explored further regarding this mathematics in the Sanskrit texts, in the Vedic Shubha Sutras, but that will not maybe help us very much directly, but that is historically very interesting. But later on, the classical mathematical texts are of great importance and need to be explored further. And we should not only look at it from the point of view of modern mathematics, but also have an open eye for maybe they tell us something that goes beyond modern mathematics.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for your valuable speech. Thank you so much once again.
And I wish you much success with the rest of the whole seminar, webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I will request to our colleague Anindita Mukherjee for vote of thanks of Dr. Hovin, chief guest of this webinar. Anindita Di.
Good evening to all of you, respected ladies and gentlemen. My very special thanks to the chief guest of this inaugural session, Professor Dr. Jan E. M. Hovin, Director of Studies, Sources and History of the Sanskrit Tradition, EPHE PSL Research University at the capital city of France. He is also visiting professor at IIT Bhubaneswar School of Humanities, Social Sciences and Management, Bhubaneswar, Odisha, India. We are very much enlightened to hear your speech, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful speech. Thank you. I take immense pleasure in extending my sincere thanks to our beloved and respected Principal Sir, Dr. Hari Krishna Mondol. I extend my heartfelt thanks to one and all who have helped to make this webinar organized. I have to specifically mention the contributions made by the IQAC coordinator, Dr. Kaveri Sarkar. I would like to thank all participants and to the last but not the least, today's co-host, Mrs. Devjoyati Ghosh, for making this session of webinar successful. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anindita Di. Now I am requested to join Dr. Parthopratim Das, Professor of Sanskrit, Bardhaman University, former UGC EEP Visiting Fellow of Budapest University, Hungary. He is President of All Bengal Sanskrit Lovers Association. He is getting Shiksha Ratna Award by IIFS New Delhi and so many more. He is the first resource person of our webinar. Please join, sir, and we will be enriched by your valuable speech. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can.
Welcome, sir. Please.
Should I start now?
Yes, sir. Your topic is some obscure post-Vedic concepts, a psychophilosophy revisit.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, the honorable resource persons, the principal of Gobardanga Hindu College, convener Dr. C.P. Sarkar, and all the members of this wonderful organizing committee. So it's a pleasure of mine to present before you some of the obscure concepts of the Vedic period, or rather the post-Vedic period. And I'm extremely glad that my predecessor in terms of speech, Professor Hu Ben, an eminent Dutch scholar of Sanskrit, who is a good friend of mine for a long, long time. And he spoke with great confidence and character. It's always a delight to watch him speak. And it's a long time, after a long time I've seen him. When I last saw him, he was younger, so was I, but by the time we have both grown older. But he is a remarkable personality in the field of global Sanskrit studies, a remarkable champion of a scholarship that he possesses. So today the topic of my deliberation is some obscure post-Vedic concepts, a psychophilosophical revisit, a psychophilosophical or to some extent pro-scientific revaluation of some of the basic but obscure, which are perhaps in a great way non-intelligible at the present moment. So these concepts are to be rediscussed, reevaluated, revisited. And I'd like to focus some new light on that, though I'm not sure I'll be quite successful in that regard. But maybe there's no harm in trying putting some light on the obscure concepts of the post-Vedic period. I have chosen only 4 concepts that have gone into obscurity owing to the lack of speculation, lack of intelligibility, or lack of proper explanation that we had in our Shastric works. Sravana, then the Prana, then Yoga Nidra, and the transcendental perception or divine perception called Yoga Sannikarsha, which is the philosophical concept really. But all these concepts form only 1 or 2%.
Please mute everybody.
Okay, so the concepts that I'll be taking on for a discussion today are Sravana, Prana, Yoga Nidra, and Yoga Sannikarsha. There are so many obscure and non-intelligible Vedic and post-Vedic concepts that we have to encounter through the ages. But these concepts are basically non-intelligible in nature. Non-intelligible in the sense that these are actually not easily understandable, because there is some inner philosophy or inner science involved in all those concepts. So only the seers or the sages or the real exponents of those concepts are aware of the inner aspects of all these concepts. So I'll take those concepts one by one and try to show that these concepts, if understood from the viewpoint of our age, can also enlighten us by bringing some light, not only into the philosophical speculations of the ancient Indians and our predecessors, but also they are always relevant even in this age. So by the time contemporary relevance, we would actually understand these concepts are always relevant. So if these concepts are always relevant, it is obviously relevant also in the modern age. Let us take the first instance first, Sravana. in particularly Advaita Vedanta, Sravana is the first level of knowledge. First level. There may be different levels of knowledge that someone has to acquire, but Sravana is the first level of knowledge. It forms a component of the whole phrase, Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, the trio. The first step towards Nididhyasana through Manana is Sravana. But what does it actually mean? Is it just listening to somebody, just like listening to songs or watching somebody speak? Or is it something different from that? Sravana is listening. There's no denying it. But there is an inner state of listening, which is also vividly explained in the Vedantic texts, in which the mind is basically non-reactive, receptive, and silent. It holds an inner space in which the inner meaning of anything said or heard can be revealed. So it is the first step towards proper understanding of a big theory. So it is not just listening. It is listening with objectivity acquired in mind. So this is the process of acquiring objectivity. And only by this, it is possible that it is listening with the mind free of opinions, free of reactions, prejudices, and attachments. So it is not just quite listening to anybody speak, for instance, a preceptor, but listening to somebody with the mind that the speaker tries to communicate. So this is the first step of communication, which I understand as the speaker identified with the same object. When some speaker speaks something to communicate with others, he expects the listener to be equally sympathetic with the speaker. So when we listen to somebody, we are actually taking the side of the speaker, not like an opponent. But in most cases, whenever we try to listen to somebody, we stand as opponents. We try to find out faults, the loopholes in the speeches that he is going to deliver. And that is where the problem lies. And by doing this, we are not able to understand the essence of what the speaker is trying to communicate with us. But at the same time, we are creating trouble in our interpersonal relationship. So Sravana is the basis of true learning and deep communication, in which the inner meaning of any statement is revealed. First of all, you need the effect, the substance, the essence of what the speaker is trying to communicate with us is to be revealed. But very few people know how to enter into that process. This is because our minds are conditioned and we respond to what is said to us according to our mental reactions and our beliefs and our standpoints, our likes and dislikes, beliefs and opinions, so on and so forth. So that is not Sravana. Sravana is not just listening, but listening to somebody which is spoken to him, in this case me, with the mind of the speaker, as if it is only I that I'm speaking to someone different, somebody else. So if you do not understand, if we do not understand that whatever I am going to speak is to be objective, is to be tried to refute, then nor will I able to communicate with the people that I'm talking to, but also it will create disturbance in our own mind. And for that reason, we will not be able to successful will not be able to be successful to properly communicate with the people and what we'd like to communicate. So Sravana is the basis of true learning. This is because our minds are essentially conditioned. Most importantly, Sravana, without Sravana, deep thinking cannot occur at all, as our thoughts become mere reactions to our conditioned patterns and personal reactions to what others are saying. So this is what Sravana. But what we understand in general, that Sravana is just listening, which is the first step towards some knowledge, but it is in fact not the first step of some knowledge. It is the first step towards proper knowledge. If we do not understand the essence of Sravana, then will be a total failure in our society because of the lack of proper communication made to the people who are either speaking or who are being spoken to. So Sravana is such listening that ensures that you understand the speaker's intentions properly, and only then will be able to understand his points, and then it is always there.
Animesh ji, please mute yourself. Please, Animesh ji.
Yeah. So Sravana is the first step towards real knowledge or the proper knowledge. So it is not only a philosophical concept, it is in fact a scientific concept, because it teaches us how to be free of prejudices, how to be objective in nature, how to shun subjectivity, and how to sympathize with the speaker who is trying to communicate something to us. It is just the taking the side of the speaker at the first level. Then you have got every right to refute him. But it's the state of, what should I say, manana, if we do not understand the speaker's intentions properly. So this is Sravana. Next, I come to the philosophical concept of Prana. Prana. What is Prana? And how is it related to other similar concepts like Jivatman and the chakras? The chakras. The inner immortal Prana is the indestructible energy that we have in our extra-physical body. Extra-physical. All the corporal bodies have some indestructible energies. In fact, all energies are indestructible. It cannot be destroyed. Energies can only be converted to newer energies. This energy can be converted to that energy. But energy is basically and essentially indestructible. So is prana. It is indestructible. The purpose of pranayama, the yogic, one of the primary aspects of yogic exercises, pranayama, is not just to take in more oxygen out of air or breathe more deeply. However, this may be for our physical well-being and physical welfare or physical culture. But it is to access our inner immortal prana, which is supposed to unite us to the universal prana as the energy behind both breath and mind. So in that case, prana is closely relevant or closely related to the concept of Jivatma and Paramatma. Much in the same way, the Jivatma is also indestructible, though it appears to be destructed, but it mingles with Paramatman the prana is actually indestructible, and it mingles with a higher prana or a higher energy. That is why the whole universe is being able to sustain itself through a continuous process of generations of people. So it is to access our inner immortal prana which unites us to the universal prana. So individual prana and universal prana. So prana itself never dies, because it's energy. Energy cannot die. It simply moves on to another body or vesture, much in the same way as the Jivatman travels. The body dies, but not the prana that gives it the life. It never dies. This inner prana or the inner energy is kept in the body by the breathing process, but exists in its own nature even when the body is no longer there. Body is destroyed, but the prana or the energy that it contained cannot destroy, cannot cease to exist, because it is energy. The deepest pranayama is to merge into the unitary prana. Unitary prana means the individual prana that we can only contact when all our pranas, all our senses, mental currents are turned within a single focus. One pointed prana or ekagra prana, as it is said in the philosophical texts, creates one pointed mind. One pointed mind. That is the real purpose of recognizing an unitary prana. So in that sense, prana is a similar concept, a concept quite containing similarity to the context of, in the context of Jivatman. They are similar concepts. So the entire universe breathes through your own breath. If you don't breathe, that is the individual prana or the unitary prana, the universe cannot breathe at all. So every individual is breathing to make the whole universe live properly. Without the existence of a unitary prana or unitary energy, the greater energy is not possible at all. So greater energy not only contains the individual energy, but it is dependent very much on the unitary prana or unitary energy. So much in the same way, Jivatman is a concept that is not only contained in Paramatman, but Paramatman cannot exist without Jivatman. They are complementary to each other. Though Paramatman is a greater concept, it absorbs all the Jivatmans, much in the same way the greater prana or the greater breathing process absorbs all the unitary pranas, and only in that case, both the pranas, smaller or greater, will live together. It depends on each other to live. So this is the real essence of what is contained in prana or energy. But one interesting point is that it is also closely related to the chakra system of our belief. Chakra. It's a tantric process. But where are the chakras located? Are they in the body? Are they located in our corporal body, physical body? No, absolutely not. No medical surgeons will find any chakra in our physical body. Then how can we recognize those chakras to be existing in our body if we do not find them at all? Now the chakras are energy centers in the subtle body, the Shukshma Sharira. Physical body is not Sukshma Sharira. So it is the subtle body that contains the chakras, not simply centers of the physical body. Physical body does not contain any chakra. They have their points of contact with the physical body, but in their true nature, they are actually beyond any physical form or pranic energy or pranic energy. Prana, the real essence of life, the essence that controls the whole atmosphere of living. The subtle body does not die with the physical body, but goes on to a new physical birth. So again, the theory of Jivatman and Paramatman, Ekagra Prano and Brihatro Prano, and fundamentally the same basic concept with little different purposes. So all these processes are actually contained to a one single large philosophical content. Theory, I'd rather put it that way. So Jivatman, the chakras and the pranas, they are basically contained in the philosophical mindset of any human being. But it is really existing in outer life. Not by the term outer life, it don't mean that life beyond our universe. It is within our universe, but beyond our physical body. So the subtle, the ether chakra, identified physically with the throat, connects us to the pranic and mental space of the subtle realm. The subtle cosmic powers of speech, hearing and sound, and the locus, the various worlds involved. So the chakras are subtler vibratory levels of prana and also mind that we can awaken by raising our vibratory level through pranayama. So pranayama is not just intaking the oxygen from air. It is in fact the intake of the very essence of life. So the chakras are subtler vibratory levels of prana and mind that we can awaken by raising our vibratory level through pranayama, mantra, meditation, and there are so many other ways also, most notable by letting go of the ego and the I am the body idea. Yeah, I am the body, I am the best, I am the body. So all these processes actually help us in shunning that ego. So this is the concept of prana philosophy. It's a psychophilosophical process which can easily be explained in terms of science. Otherwise, we will not be able to understand why the idiopathic ideas of the diseases that come and go with the various stages of life, various stages of time. The doctors do not understand why this disease has actually happened to us. This is called idiopathic, or that is, which is not understandable by even the remotest, even the science of the highest order. They can't diagnose or can't state the reason behind the diseases happening. So in that case, if we recognize the existence of subtler bodies, that is the Sukshma Sharira, and the existence of the chakras, that are the energy centers existing in the subtler bodies, these problems will be gone forever. So this is prana and its relation to Jivatman and also its relation to chakras. Next, the point of obscure concept of the post-Vedic period is Yoga Nidra, is another concept which is misunderstood by many people. The Yoga Nidra, what do you mean? What do you mean by the term Yoga Nidra? Yoga Nidra is not just sleep, or is not just meditation. Yoga Nidra is not just relaxation or pratyahara or deep sleep. Those, though these processes can be preliminary parts of the practice. Yoga Nidra is not just sleep or deep sleep at all, but Yoga Nidra or yogic sleep is possible when we maintain our self-awareness in Sushupti or deep sleep. That is an awakened state when you are asleep. We are sleeping, but we have not lost our ability to think. When we dream, we lose the ability to think properly in logical order. That is sleep. But in Yoga Nidra, we do not lose the thinking ability or the thought processes, even if we are deeply asleep. That is Yoga Nidra. So he is sleeping, but maintaining his ability to think properly, doing solving some mathematical problems, discussing some philosophical concepts. All these things are possible if Yoga Nidra takes place. So this is a new thing, a new idea which we have failed to understand properly, but it is indeed possible through some mechanical devices. There are so many psychological tests where you will be asked to lie on the bed. They'll put some helmet on you, on your head, and allow you to think the way you'd like to. Then on the monitor, on the TV monitor, your thought processes will be demonstrated. So think properly. If these things are possible, why can't we, at least those who possesses higher abilities to think, who are psychologically, many people may explain it that it is actually parapsychological thing, but it is not so. Psychologically stronger personalities, why can't they do that? So Yoga Nidra is possible when you are asleep to the outer world. People are seeing that you are actually sleeping, but you are not. When you are into the deep meditation processes, what do the people think? What do the people see? He is absorbed in meditation, so he's not able to speak, he's not able to walk, he's not able to do anything. But in fact, the person who is deeply asleep and still maintaining a kind of awareness, he's able to walk, he's able to speak, he's able to do anything, even more than what we awakened people can do. So this is Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra requires that we let go of all memories and imaginations and contact our immutable inner light, from which the entire universe and all of the nature arises as boundless peace, the supreme Sushupti or supreme Shanti or supreme peace. So there are two characteristics of Yoga Nidra. One, firstly, it is a process by which a yogic practitioner can be awakened while being asleep, and the vice versa. He can be asleep while being awakened. So these two aspects are the two features of Yoga Nidra. So it is very close to the highest Nirvikalpo Samadhi or Nirvikalpo meditation, beyond all the movements of the mind. And in that case, the minds are totally under the control of the yogic practitioner. I mean, the person who is into the yoga nidra process. So yoga nidra or yogic sleep is possible only when we maintain our self-awareness while being asleep. So this is not an easy thing to do. It requires years and years of practices. It requires some a newer psychological, extra physical kind of effort. It requires so. And obviously, the yogic, the various yogic aspects, the pranayama, the pratyahara, etc., he needs to be performing. And by doing that, ultimately he will be reaching salvation. But it is not the salvation that his goal is all about. It's not salvation. He may not want salvation at all. He may be, I mean, somebody who is yoga nidraka, who is asleep, who is performing the yoga nidra. He can do anything. He can do anything earthly. It is not about unearthly. It is not alaukiko. It is laukiko. Because it is possible in the loka. Something that is possible in the loka cannot be called alaukiko. So in a higher stratum of this universe, it can, the higher, something that is not physically possible, something that appears not to be physically possible is possible. That is not alaukiko. That is very much laukiko, but at the higher level of our existence. So these existence must be recognized. If we do not recognize this existence, we will fall into the trap of many things that will ever remain unintelligible. So this is yoga nidra. And I will talk about another thing that is very close to these concepts. I've already spoken about savana. I've already spoken about two peculiar aspects that are relevant to yoga and also Ayurveda, that is prana and yoga nidra. And I will come to the last aspect of a yogic performance, I'd rather say, which is also related to yoga and which is related to the modern possibility of our thinking. So we call it yogaja sannikarsha, perception that is achieved through yogic acts. Is it possible? In the Nyaya philosophy or under the philosophies of rather quite a bit sects of Indian philosophy, this alaukiko sannikarsha is recognized. Yogaja sannikarsha, or the perception deriving out of yogic act, is recognized in some schools of Indian philosophy as a specific form of perception. Such concept is hotly debated by some schools or even individuals, at least as presupposition. These are not universally accepted. But the yogic act is a phenomenon. Many people have seen the yogis, the yogins, or the yogi experts perform such feats. But all these things are not miracles. These things can be done in this present world. And whatever can be done in this present world cannot be called outwardly or unearthly. So this matter was discussed in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali and it remains primarily in theory. It remains primarily in theory. It is still a matter of debate as to whether such concept is practically feasible at all. Though many people have seen the yogic experts performing such feats. But still, there are a lot of people who do not believe in such activities because they believe that the yogic practitioners are actually performing magic. They're doing it by way of tricks. But these are not tricks. Maybe the effects are virtually the same. In a magical effect, the yogic miracles, the yogic feats, they may appear to be very similar. They can be likened to each other. But these are not feats of magic. These are the feats of the yogic acts, which is possible by some specific process of doing something. For example, performing various aspects of the yoga, various principles of yoga. It is better to recognize that it is still a matter of great debate, whether it is possible at all. But I'd like to focus one thing on that. Focus on that why these yogic acts are possible. I'm not saying that these things are easily possible, but why these feats are actually possible in this world. Science has actually proved that. There are so many people who firmly believe in the possibility of such transcendental yogic acts. But now, can the modern development of neuroscience or ophthalmology justify the reality of yogic perception? Can modern science justify the possibility of yogic perception or yoga sannikarsha, at least in a remote way? Can science justify that? So far, science has not justified it. It has always become beyond the reach of science. But science can justify. And there are so many developments that happened during the last few decades point to the fact that these things are not beyond our reach. It is possible at any rate. It is possible, but it is not possible by anyone who would like to take up. It is not so. Anyone can climb the Everest. Anyone cannot go deep into the sea. Anyone cannot hold the breath for 5 hours. But it is possible simply because at least 1 or 2 people can do that. If at least 1 people can do that, it is possible. So neuroscience, or the science of, to be more specific, the science of ophthalmology can justify it. How? This is the point I'd like to focus on. The answer might be in the positive. Yes, it is. Indeed, science, the modern development of science can prove, or at least convince us that it is a possibility. How? See, if the visual cortex that exists in our brain can be stimulated artificially by making the entire visual pathway from retina to a visual cortex sufficiently functional to perceive an object, perceive light, perceive the reflection of light, and perceive the object almost in totality, then why can't the yogis do that? If only a mechanical device can do that, the scientists have discovered a mechanical device. The process is called visual cortex prosthesis system. And with the help of this system, a blind person can see the light. And if he can see the light, when the light will be in contact with the object, he will also see the object. So now a blind person can see. Maybe not immediately, but after some time, when his eyes will be accustomed to that. But the scientists have developed the visual cortex prosthesis system. And they have made, the scientists, they have made it possible. They have made the blind people see the light of the day, see the object. Though I'm not saying they are 100% successful as yet. They are about 90% successful. 10% still remain to be explored. But the days are not, days are coming when all the blind people in the world will be operated and they'll be able to perform, the scientists will be able to perform on them visual cortex prosthesis system. Then why can't the yogis do that? If a mechanical device can make a blind people see the light of the day, why can't the yogis do that? This is the point I raise. And I'm not saying that this is the only reason why the yogic performances have to be recognized. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying and arguing for the fact, that if science can reach this stage where a mechanical device can make a blind people see, and a person with his eyes closed can see, then why can't the yogis see differently? So visual cortex prosthesis system is the modern development of neuroscience and ophthalmology, which has helped blind people see. And I believe are not far away from here, that all the blind people of the world will be able to see the light of the day. And with this light on this Jogaja Sundikorsho, please allow me to sign off. Thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing. And I know that a few questions will be coming in, a few stones and flowers might also be thrown at, but let's face boldly enough. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable question.
If any questions from audience, please you may ask, sir.
One question.
Any question from audience? Please ask to sir, please.
One question by Pinaki Pandey, sir. He says, as I saw in the newspaper 2 days ago, a famous scientist did not acknowledge the soul. Your opinion has been sought in this regard, sir.
Okay. Scientists have actually never acknowledged the existence of soul. So it is not a matter of 2 days only. Scientists have denied the existence of soul for a long, long time. But I'm not sure on what basis that scientists have actually done that. They have always denied, but without any reasonable argument. They have neither been able to establish that the soul is existent, nor they have been able to refute the argument that the soul is existent. So without knowing the details of how that scientist has denied the soul, I cannot actually comment on that. But recognizing soul is a different thing. It is not relevant to Jivatman and Paramatma. Those are different concepts. By Jivatmon, it does not correspond to soul. It is a different concept. It's an indestructible energy that holds. Can scientists ever prove that why the heartbeats are beating for the whole the period of life? Why the hearts of an animal beat for a shorter period of time? Why the heartbeats of different animals beat for different periods of time? Let us first understand the problems associated with that. We'll take on the soul theory subsequently, but we must solve our physical problems first. When all the physical problems are resolved, then we'll be able to talk about the outer souls. Scientists have never recognized, and it is not important that they recognize it. Maybe 100 years from now, even 1,000 years from now, it is recognized. And if it is not really so, it must be refuted. No problem with that. We must stick to the truth. I hope you got the answer.
Thank you, sir. There is another question from Shantanu Sarkar. Sir, are these threefold, Swaban, Mana, Nidra, communication processes completely cognitive or logical or emotional?
Yeah, what a wonderful question this is. Yeah, it is indeed. It is a combination of all these three. Yeah, absolutely. It is a combination of all these three. It is the entire network of communication. The network of communication begins with the speaker, something that is spoken. Then comes the understanding of what the speaker has communicated. The Shravan means understanding the speaker's intention first, speaker's viewpoint, from the speaker's viewpoint. It is indeed a cognitive process, but it is not solely a cognitive process. It is also radical. It is radical because a child can master a language in 2 years, simply because it is cognitive. It happens in a mental state. He can eliminate. The child can eliminate wrong words which are not necessary for his use. So it is indeed cognitive, but an older person cannot learn a language in 2 years. He may take 20 years, or even cannot learn the language at all in his entire process. Starts and comes to an end at some point of time in our life. So it is a combination of factors. It's a combination of all those three that you have mentioned. Wonderful question. I appreciate.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. No more questions. Requesting to organize, sir. He also said, we know the role of mirror neurons for sympathetic communication. In these three status, where does this kind of mirror neuron-based empathy occur in our brain, or does it happen emotionally?
No. It never happens emotionally, because we do not know the entire sphere of activities of our left and right brains. We have understood only 2 or 3% of the entire brain system. Brain is a 50-point supercomputer, but we have mastered only can we call 5% of the brain. So it is not emotional. But if it is emotional, even if it is emotional, it has a scientific basis, because emotions are created out of the various activities of our hormones. Some people are, for example, if somebody has oxytocin hormone in a higher quantity, he will act differently from the person who is devoid of such hormones. So even if it is emotional, it is not quite emotional, but even if it is emotional, it has a scientific basis. So without science, we cannot do that.
Okay, sir. Thank you. No more questions. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable speech. Thank you.
Welcome.
So far, we
Thank
have
you, sir.
heard.
Sanskrit, sir.
So far, we have heard from the first speaker of our first academic session. Now, we will invite to Professor Diditi Vishnesh ma'am. She is the second and last speaker of first academic session, who was the former professor and head Department of Sanskrit, University of Calcutta. She worked as a guest faculty in museology, Rabindra Bharati University. Now she is guest faculty in the Department of Sanskrit College and University. She is a Isha scholar and recipient of Radhakanta Dev Gold Medal and Jubilee Prize. She contributed number less than 60 research papers. She authored 3 books and so many more. Today, she will say about some evidences of scientific thought from the Vedic text. Please welcome, ma'am, and we will be enriched by your valuable speech. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Welcome, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon. I am extremely grateful to the organizers of this international webinar for inviting me to participate as a resource person. I extend my thanks to the principal of the college, to the convener of the webinar, and all other eminent faculty members who are trying to make it successful. I congratulate for selecting the thrust area as exploring Vedic thoughts in contemporary society, because this is a very relevant topic today. And we know that Vedic literature is one of the important elements to reconstruct the ancient Indian history. And they date back to 1500 BC and went on growing till 500 BC. And they are mostly religious in character, but we find occasional flashes of critical and analytical studies on various concepts of present-day society. As for example, the fraternity, concept of fraternity, the feeling for nature around, the concept of kingship, polity, and many other aspects. So I think that this is a very important aspect of, this is an important topic for today's, and to keeping with the spirit of the webinar, my investigate some scientific thoughts as found in the Vedic sages' mantras. Not only the mantras, the statements of the mantras, and I have taken the Vedas and the Vedangas also in my discussion. First of all, I want to draw your attention that the ancient sages were well acquainted with some kind of knowledge, but what is now known as the water cycle. Water cycle is a very important topic today, and we know that it is a very important natural phenomenon. Also, let me tell that all these ancient civilizations have developed on the bank of the river, and Vedic civilization is not an exception. By way of eulogizing the rivers, they also eulogized the water, and they understood the pivotal role water plays in the life. And in this way, Rishi Dirghatamas observed in a mantra that the same water moves from earth to sky and falls down again in the form of water. Actually, the sages realized the fact that the global water content remains in a sort of dynamic equilibrium with the vaporization and its precipitation. This realization is no way a negligible achievement. And I repeat the statement of Rishi Dirghatamas, Samanam etat udakam uchchaiti ahuvi. Bhuming parjanna jinvanti, dibam jinvanti agraya. The same water, it goes up, and it also comes down in form of water, in form of rain. So it suggests that the evaporation water by the sun was a well-known fact at that time. And this observation has been corroborated by the etymologies supplied by Yaska in his Nidra. Yaska, while explaining the synonyms of Surya, he has taken up this quality, this property of Surya, the vaporization of water by the Surya, by the sun, in number of ways. As for example, Aditya, the word Aditya is a synonym of sun, Surya. He has said Adatti Rasan, which takes away the rasa of the word. Nabha, Nita Rasanam. Naka, Nita Rasanam, the same meaning. Go, Gamayati Rasan. Swa, Swishta Rasan. Bishta, Abishta Rasan. The similar meaning has been provided. Similar etymologies have been provided by Yaska in his Nirukta for the synonyms of sun. It is also declared in the Chandogya Upanishad that water assumes different forms in different stages, like Dhuma, Abra, Megha, and lastly, rain. Yaska in Nirukta summarized that rain originates from the mixing up of water and heat. Mixing up of water and heat. This is an important, very important observation made by Yaska. Apancha jatishashta mishri bhava karmano vasha karmo jayati. The role of wind in bringing down rain is felt since the Vedic age. Bayur by vrishya ishe sa eva asmai pajannam vashayati digva eva vrishtim prachavayati, etc. It is found in Taittiriya Samhita. Katha Samhita declares very clear-cut way, Bayu Vrishtim Bahati. Shatabata Brahmana says that all the directions the wind blows to become associated with the rainfalls. Nirukta, in a way of summing up, declares that the wind carries the clouds from here and there and makes it rain. All these observations of Vedic poets are the result of their indigenous knowledge. The importance of rain or any kind of water as a life-supporting natural resource has been overemphasized in the Vedic texts. We have found that Medhatithi Karna, a Vedic sage, discovered the medicinal quality of water and declared that water is just like nectar, amrita. Apsu antar amritam apsu bheshajam. This idea was very popular at the time, and it became very popular day by day. This has been repeated in other Vedic texts also. As example, we find it in the Atharva Veda and also in the Taittiriya Samhita. The therapeutic characteristic of water was always acknowledged by the sages of the Atharva Veda. They could differentiate the efficacy of water stored in a clay pot, in a metal pot, and others. They also empirically make differences of the rivers coming from different sources, carrying water of tributaries from over the different terrains. The reason behind it has not been explained by the sages, it is sure. But I think that they could understand that the quality, the efficacy of the water of different rivers were different. Probably in today's parlance, we can say that it was because of the reason that they were flowing on different terrains, carrying different minerals and chemicals, etc. But it was not specifically explained by the Vedic sages, but they could find the differences, they could observe the differences of efficacy of water of different rivers. The ancient people also realized that a very important aspect of water lies in the plantation. And that has been reflected in the Shankharana Brahmana. Chandogya Upanishad pointed out that world survives on the good rainfall. Without a good rainfall, the living beings get afflicted and production of food affected. The one point I want to emphasize here, the rivers eulogized Indra in some mantra as digging their path. Indra Asman Aradak Vajrapani. Indra Asman Aradak Vajrapani. Just look at the word Aradak. Aradak comes from the root rad, which means to dig. So Indra made the passages of the rivers by digging the ground. A question is raised whether this statement has any significance with the work of irrigation that was important for agriculture. I don't know, but I just share my views with you. The people realized that the purity of water needs to be maintained, and they warned, very strongly they warned, Naksu Mutra Purisham Pujat Na Nishtibet. It is found in Taittiriya Aranyaka, that goes back to approximately 1000 BC. It is probably the earliest idea of introducing the concept of water conservation. And in fact, this thing also takes care of the preservation of the prevention of water pollution. This statement got so popular that it has been repeated verbatim in later Dharma Shastras also. We can also appreciate the concern of the sage of Bhumi Shukta when he cherishes a strong inner feeling that let the earth remain intact. If one digs up its part, let it be filled up soon. Let this earth not suffer any injury. Yatte bhumi bikhanami shikram tadapi rohatu, mate marma bimdik bari, mate hridayam arpipam. No wonder whether they had any idea of erosion of soil. I again place this question to the august audience. In this connection, it is worth mentioning that the author of Veda acknowledged the importance of clay also as the antidote of poison. They also acknowledged the sun ray as the agency of healing diseases. The sun rays, according to the author of Veda, could make the heartbeat regular, the skull strong and sound, and could drive away the diseases associated with the head and any types of body pain. And they also recognize some plants and creepers for healing diseases, and it will take a long time for this detailed description. I just mentioned a few. Pushto was acknowledged to heal fever. Rajuni, to recolor the white spots in the skin. Nitatni as hair fertilizer. Orundhati to stop bleeding, and so on. In fact, Atharvaveda was accepted as the mother of Indian medicinal science. There are some mantras that showed their acquaintance with the anatomy of man and animal, with detailed description of different parts of the body. Of course, the wisdom of Atharvaveda may not corroborate the modern science in the absolute sense, but the liberal approach to know the anatomy is really praiseworthy. The Atharvas were very eager to make birth of a child hassle-free and smooth. In the Poshika Sutra, a Grija Sutra of Atharva Veda, prescribes that a pregnant mother would be given hot water sponge on her head and the muscles should be made relaxed. I again refer to one Shrouder Sutra, Ashurana Shrouder Sutra, a Vedanga text, which suggests that if the sacrificer dies during the Soma sacrifice, his body should not be cremated. Then what to do? His body should be preserved by anointing Nalada. The stomach should be washed up stool and butter mixed with curd should be injected. Now the identity of Nalada has been ascertained, and the commentator also said that it should be ascertained from the experienced person. But whatever it might be, the whole process has some relation with the preservation of the dead body. Just remember the date of this of writing this treatise. We have already referred to Yashka, the author of Nidra. This ancient scholar can be acclaimed for his open mind and clear vision that has endowed him a special position in the Vedic literature. The date of Yashka goes back to 700 BC to 500 BC. In the way of presenting the etymologies, he showed his acquaintance with some phenomena of solar system. Commenting on the etymology of Go, a synonym of Aditya, the sun, Yashka observes that Yashka actually referred to a mantra, Vedic mantra, Utad Parushe Gabi, as an illustration, and he observed that the sun has a number of rays, one of which is known as Go, otherwise it is known as Shuchuman. This ray is responsible for the illumination of the moon. To justify his views, Yashka clearly declares the sun is the cause for the illumination of the moon. Moon do not contain this original illuminative power. He places his view on a stronger ground by stating that is why moon is called Gandharva, due to its association with a particular ray of Go. Athapi asa eka rashmish chandram asam prati dipati. Very clear, meaning is very clear. Athapi asa eka rashmish chandram asam prati dipati. Tad etena upakshitabam adittato asa dittir bhavati. Adittato asa dittir bhavati. So moon is illumined from the rays of the sun. Another concept of solar system, that is that the luminaries do not move away during day, but only becomes invisible, finds expression in Yashka's Nirukto through the etymologies of the word denoting the sun. Normally, it is believed that the stars and other luminaries rise at night and set in the daytime. But Yashka refutes the then prevalent notion, as he observed that the rays of the sun absorb the brightness of the luminaries and stars, and so they become invisible. So to express the aspect of sun, Aditya, he again explained it in the way Adate Jyotisham Bhasam, takes away the brightness of the luminaries. Yashka reveals his knowledge of the production of fire. This is very important. Through the refraction of light that passes from the medium to another medium. Actually, this observation was made by Shakapuni, and he was a predecessor of Yashka. And Shakapuni explains this very vividly during his explanation of what Vaishanara. Vaishanara means the terrestrial fire. The terrestrial fire. He said that Vaishanara is so called because it has been originated from Vishanara. Vishanara means sun or lightning. As it has been originated from Vishanara, sun, it is called Vaishanara. So terrestrial fire is Vaishanara. And the process has been explained in the way that during the time of northern solstice of the sun, if a person holds a polished piece of white copper or a crystal, focusing the sunlight, it is observed that the sunbeam passing through the medium can make the dry cow dung kept apart ablaze just by focusing the light on it. The fire is Boishanara, that is produced not directly by rubbing stone or dry woods. It has been produced through sunlight. The convergence of sunlight to a point while passing through a convex lens is a well-known phenomenon in science, and mankind has used it widely to light fire. The ancient scholars were well aware of this phenomenon. This is very important. Yashkas also show that how this terrestrial fire is produced from the lightning also. In this connection, he pointed out the difference between the characteristic features of these two types of fire: lightning, the atmospheric fire, and the terrestrial fire. The atmospheric fire flashes in the water of the clouds. We find the lightning in the clouds. So he said that lightning it flashes in the water of the clouds and gets extinguished in solid bodies. Terrestrial fire, on the other hand, possesses just the opposite features. It gets extinguished in water and keeps ablaze in solid bodies. It is really a matter of critical scientific debate till now how the lightning originates, as this involves several complex phases. Yaska, however, could identify that lightning is not divine, but a natural phenomenon being flashed in the clouds. So probably to show the contrast with the terrestrial fire, he used the expression udakendhana, which is, however, scientifically not viable. But the attitude of Yaska should be appreciated in this regard, especially if one considers the period he belonged to. This scholar also refuted the prevalent notion, it has been prevalent notion of the origin of rain on the basis of the myth that rain stored by Britra has been released by Indra by killing this demon with his Vajra. Yaska clearly stated that Britra, who is that Britra? Megha iti noirukta, Svashra asura iti oitihashika. So the school of Oitihashikas, it has been referred to by our great scholar, Professor Hauben, in his inaugural speech, that there was a school of Oitihashikas, which in the later times extinct. However, this notion was very much prevalent at that time, but Yaska refuted that notion. His scientific knowledge is also explained in the etymology of the word ambu. Ambu is called Pranam, derived from the root re. Re means to move. It shows that through this etymology, he clearly expressed one of the inherent properties of the water as acknowledged in the science, and that is the quality of flowing. Now let me draw your attention that the later Vedic texts like Shatapatha Brahmana and Chandogya Upanishad included a number of subjects in the syllabus of the students apart from the traditional Vedic studies. From the long list of studies, to mention a few, are Rashi, mathematics, Nidhi, science of time, Ekayana, ethics and politics, Bhuto Vidya, science of elemental spirit, Nakshatra Vidya, astronomy, Sarpa Vidya, science of snakes, Devo Jajana Vidya, fine arts, Shatra Vidya, science of war, etc. This indicates that with the advancement of time, people became exposed with more and more subjects, and that inclusion in the study material became obvious. At the same time, it seems probable that the people no more remained confined to the Vedic study only, rather they began to get exposed to the contemporary topics since a long time. Unfortunately, any textual evidence for the continual process of the study or the cultivation of these subjects cannot be traced till now. The practice of these branches of knowledge was very much there. The process of counting and dealing with numbers were very much common to the people since Rig Vedic era. Apart from the numbers like 1 to 10, they knew the numbers like Shata, Shahasra, Ayuta, Niyuta, Prayuta, etc. The numbers were used in compound form also, Triyugam, Panchakrishti, etc. The explanation of some of the numerical through etymology by Yasker reveals his knowledge not only with multiplication, but also with powers of 10. The town, Vingshati, is explained as the double of Dasha, Shatam as multiple of 10, Ayuta as the multiple of 10 of 1000, Niyuta as the multiple of 10 of Ayuta, Prayuta as the multiple of 10 of Niyuta, etc. The sage Dikadamas Ochatta counted the number of days, months, and seasons of a year through some metaphorical verses we found in the Ashwamanya Sutta, famous Ashwamanya Sutta, Rig Veda 164. The sun moves alone and gets associated with 7 rays. Probably they had the idea of 7 colors of the sun ray. In this connection, we may refer to the Kalu Sutta, the famous verse of Kalu Sutta, Kalu Ashbahati Sapta Rashmi. However, Dikadamas Achyuta refers to 3 seasons, 5 seasons, and 6 seasons. Commentators explain that although there are 6 seasons, 3 seasons, Grishma, Vashma, and Shishira were the basic ones, and others were the varieties. Again, as to the number of 5 seasons, they explain that Hemanta and Shishira are so close together, they are clubbed together. Actually, the reference to the 5 seasons are more found in the Vedic text than the reference to the 6 seasons. It is also expressed that there are 12 months in a year and 360 days. The Brahmana texts also clearly express that Shashtishcha Havai Trini Cha Shatani Sambatsarasya Ahuratra. And if the days and nights are counted separately, the number will be 720. This awareness of the sages is really remarkable. The wisdom of the Vedic people regarding astronomy is based on the determining the perfect time of the performance of sacrifices. The Atharvaveda dedicated 2 hymns to stars, nakshatrani, and we find the mention of 28 nakshatras there. The contribution of the Shula Sutra in the history of geometry cannot be denied, and it has been discussed by Professor Hauben, and so I am not going into details into it. And I come to the concluding portion of my presentation. I have to admit that one may raise blows by going through the evidences of scientific thought of the Vedic poets that I have discussed. They may not be taken as scientific in modern parlance of the word, but considering the high antiquity of the Vedic text, the vision of the then people reflected therein needs to be really acclaimed. One has to appreciate the keen observations of the Vedic poets on different natural phenomena. They learn from nature that water gets vaporized and forms rain. They discovered that sun ray being refracted through a bright medium can generate fire. They felt certain that water does not remain static, rather flows, and so on, so forth. We come across the explanations behind this phenomena presented by the Vedic sages in their own way, which may not be assessed as scientific in today's jargon. We should not have too much expectation to the Vedas that they had the knowledge of everything in our present life, or would provide the theories behind all the natural phenomena or technical applications. They did not know that the sun is static and the earth moves around it. So the word Surya has been derived from the root Sri, meaning to move. Their knowledge was that the sun moves and earth remains static. But the inquisitiveness of the Vedic sages and the way of finding the answers originated from their indigenous knowledge and experience. Their imagination and innovative attitude to invent different devices reflect, no doubt, some kind of scientific outlook of the Vedic people. That in turn bear a great impact on the advancement of knowledge. Here lies the importance of Vedic texts in the intellectual inheritance of India in the contemporary society. Thank you.
Questions? If you have any questions from ma'am, you can write here or say. No questions, ma'am. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your valuable speech, ma'am. We are enriched. Truly, we are enriched. Uh, Now I will call Dr. Sriti Sarkar, Assistant Professor of Gobardanga Hindu College and the convener in this webinar to give vote of thanks.
Thank you, Devjyoti.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Respected sir and madam. We are very happy to invite you, sir and madam, as a speaker, and it is our pleasure that you are giving such wonderful time or spend your time for our international webinar. And thanks to respected sir, Professor Parthopratim Das, HOD, Department of Sanskrit, Badwan University. And thank you, sir, for your wonderful speech. And madam, from Calcutta University.
Dr. Sarkar, I am not the head of the department right now. Professor Aditi Sarkar is the head of the department right now. Okay.
Sir, actually, okay, sir. No problem, sir. Okay. And I am also giving gratitude.
Just a moment,
Yes,
let me interrupt.
Yes,
Parthopratim Das is a very eminent scholar, Sanskrit scholar, and is very good orator. And really, I want to thank Partho that, as usual, I have been swayed with your beautiful speech. And I also pay my gratitude to Professor Haubin. He made a he created a very good atmosphere, and his speech was just like a Mangalacharan of this webinar. I'm grateful to him. I am a very good admirer of his scholarship, and also I am admirer of Parthopratim's scholarship also. Partho is just like my younger brother. His speech was very beautiful, and I take this opportunity to thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for
giving
such information, sir, ma'am, giving such nice information about them. Okay. And Professor Diti Vishnesh from Calcutta University, Department of Sanskrit. Ma'am, thank you for your wonderful speech also. And I also thankful to Professor E.M. Huben and ma'am, Professor Sharojunath Rath Huben. She is also here. Just I know that now. Okay, ma'am, thank you. You are with me, with us in this webinar. Thanks again. And at last, thanks to all dear participants and like students, my colleagues and my co-host Devjyoti Ghosh. And ma'am, now, sir and madam, now the session is over, and the next we will meet the next session tomorrow, and please join with us. We are very grateful again, sir, everyone, sir and madam. Professor Jonas is here now. I am saying Pranam, namaste, sir. We are very grateful and thankful to you and ma'am also. Ma'am, please, you are here. You are hearing, ma'am?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, please, if we see you, please, if possible, please turn on your video, if possible.
It is turned on.
Acha, actually, the name is there, Rashmi, no?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Rasmi.
Oh, okay, fine. That's great. Okay, actually, madam, madam is the life partner or wife of Professor E.M. Bhuven, and everyone don't know. I think that's why I am saying on it. Okay, ma'am, thank you. You are here with us. Okay. Thanks to
Welcome, ma'am.
all. Okay. Thanks to all. Okay, we will meet tomorrow for the next session. And thanks again for sir and madam. Thanks. Ma'am, uh, hello, Sarju ma'am.
Hello. Yeah.
Oh, ma'am, you are okay.
Yes,
Actually,
yes, yes. Coming.
okay, it is big mistake for us.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I am hearing, ma'am.
Thank you very much because everything went very well. Why my camera is now off? I don't understand.
Okay, ma'am,
Yeah.
you are with us. It is very pleasure. It is our great pleasure. You are with us, and actually, I have spoken on Rashmi ji. I thought that Saraju ma'am is here. That's why it is big mistake
Yeah.
for me.
Okay, yes. Oh, you are Smriti. Yes.
Smriti,
It's
ma'am,
really
Smriti.
lovely to lovely to see you all, and it's a very beautiful teamwork you have done, and it's really it's a pleasure to be with you all. I really tried my best to sit and listen to everything, and it's a very beautiful theme and very means much effort you all have done actually. So that is why on behalf of both of us, we heartily thank you all, and it's really it's a pleasure to see you all also. And it was very good response. I saw that a huge number of participants were there, like who were really listening. So it was really good. Thank you all.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks again. Okay.
I'm really
Okay.
sorry that I'm really sorry that I don't know why my camera is not
No, ma'am,
coming.
don't say
No
sorry.
problem.
No. Actually,
No
I thought
problem.
that another
Yes.
Reshmi ji is here. I think she is the. Actually, I